the things that stuck out of my mind, little stories that are almost like a whole story by themselves. I copied. So I put this in a later letter, but I've written this not as a letter, just as a story. So it'll show up in a letter later, but it's so cool I want to read this right now. It says, this is Panama. So the plane landed in Panama just after noon, and I had real hope of making a fast connection and being on the road to Costa Rica by nightfall. It was iffy though, and I was counting on luck because I didn't have a plan. There had been a plan a couple of days earlier when I'd set out to return to the USA. I had left the remote jungle town where I'd taught English until I'd saved a little money and had gone to the major port of Barranquilla, figuring to catch a cargo boat bound for Mexico. I wanted to book cheap passage and then zigzag through pre-Columbian ruins as I made my way to California, and it seemed like a good plan, and I found a ship for Veracruz with a captain willing to take me. We went to a tavern to conclude our deal. I paid him $75, we shook hands, and then two policemen stepped into the bar with machine guns at the ready. With barely a word, they escorted the captain and my money out the door. Was I ripped off? Was the captain innocent of this, but coincidentally guilty of some other crime? Was I going to mess with machine guns over $75? I decided to pay the airfare for the short hop to Panama across the Darien, the dense jungle that no road penetrates, and then hitchhike home from there. The ticket was about a third of my cash, but I calculated that I'd easily make it home on $80, so I bought it, and I hurried to the Panamanian consulate for an entry visa. It was upsetting to learn that they wouldn't grant an entry until I showed them proof of a way out, but my airfare was non-refundable, so I accepted fate, used a few more dollars to buy a bus ticket to Costa Rica, got the visa, and flew to Panama. From the airport, I grabbed the local bus into downtown seeking the Costa Rican consulate, hoping to get a visa, catch an afternoon bus ride, and so sleep on the overnight run and avoid paying for a night's lodging. That wasn't fated though, because although I located the consulate right away, they wouldn't grant a visa unless I produced proof that I could leave the country as well as enter it. I sputtered and cursed, but I went to the bus station and booked passage from San Juan to Managua. I returned, ticket in hand, to find the Costa Ricans start their weekend early. The consulate was closed and would not reopen until Monday. I laughed. Welcome to Panama, I thought, and I went looking for a cheap room. My scant money was dwindling, and the cost of living in Panama, tied to the US dollar through the canal, was shockingly higher than it had been in Colombia. After a lot of walking, I found a room for $4 a night, cleaned up, and set out to find the cheap food and cheaper entertainment that would see me through the weekend. Finding food that didn't take too much cash, yet wasn't disgusting, was a sort of adventure, and the passing scene was diverting. Panama is a world crossroads, and the population reflects it. Skins of black and tan and blonde and creamy yellow admixed with curly and kinky and straight hair of many hues, along with eyes of every color, made simply walking the streets pleasurable. I strolled the waterfront, admiring the working boats and the bustle of the docks. For a long time, I watched ugly bald vultures do the job that I was more accustomed to see gulls perform. The ungainly birds turned graceful as they swooped to pick up fish parts and offal from the water. I had made my peace and was enjoying the enforced layover. I found a small plaza in the old commercial heart of the city and sat on a bench Saturday afternoon, feeling blessed some way, when a young man sat down and we struck up a conversation. It was his tie that started it, handcrafted folk art, black cotton with a series of brightly colored birds in applique, so striking that I had to comment. He was happy to show it to me and explained that it was the work of the Kuna Indians, and the figures were not birds but mythical beings done in reverse applique. He was on his lunch break from his bank job and glad to talk. He told me about the Kuna, the canal, the early Spanish, and more, and he hadn't finished talking when he had to return to work. He told me he was busy that night, but that if I was willing, he would pick me up in the plaza Sunday evening and give me a tour. Well, I was available. My acquaintance, his name is Ishak, pulled into the plaza about 9 p.m., driving an older, large American sedan. I settled into the front seat and was introduced to two friends, Nikos and Rafael, seated in the back. Ishak talked as we pulled into heavy traffic, pointing out the sights, outlining the evening's itinerary, telling me a bit about his friends in the back. It was interesting. traveling through the city and out into the countryside as we headed for a scenic vista that overlooked a lake, an integral part of the canal system. It couldn't have been a lovelier night. A nearly full moon in a starry sky accented by distant towering cumulus clouds, cooled tropical evening air, fireflies flashing, shimmering lake reflection, everything. I would have been totally captivated, except there had been juicy noises coming from the back seat almost as soon as we pulled into traffic. Oh Lord, I thought, this is some sort of double date and the boys in the back are screwing. We parked above the moon's reflection in the dark waters, and Ishak and I left the lovers and walked a path to the shore, and I said, Ishak, I think you're sweet, you're very attractive, but I cannot become involved with you or anyone until I sort out my feelings for the man who loved me and left me. I came to South America to forget him, but I can't. I'm on my way back to confront him, to embrace him or erase him. I had hit the perfect note. Oh, you poor dear. He was very solicitous and had treated my broken heart with courtesy and delicacy for the rest of the evening. After the lake, we visited the ruins and gardens of the old colonial city, then went to dinner and drinks at a nightclub. The moon was still shining when he drove me back to the plaza, and I said, quite honestly, thanks for an evening I'll never forget. Remember me in Panama, as I will remember your painful love, he said, as he took off the tie that I had admired. I still have it, and that memory of Panama.